The bustling New York office buzzes with activity as Kendra steps through the glass doors. Her eyes scan the room, taking in the tense atmosphere that has become all too familiar. Colleagues huddle in small groups, their voices low and guarded. Kendra's face, a mask of determination tinged with sadness, reflects the daily struggle she faces in this hostile environment. As she makes her way to her desk, Kendra overhears snippets of conversation that make her skin crawl. The casual racism, thinly veiled as office banter, is a constant reminder of her outsider status. She takes a deep breath, steeling herself for another day of navigating this minefield. The morning meeting begins, and Tom, Kendra's boss, takes center stage. His arrogance fills the room as he begins to speak. Midway through his presentation, he pauses, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. And now, for a little humor to lighten the mood, he announces. What follows is a racist joke, thinly disguised as workplace humor. Laughter erupts around the table, but it's forced and uncomfortable. Some colleagues avoid eye contact with Kendra, while others steal guilty glances her way. Tom, oblivious or indifferent to the discomfort he's causing, continues to chuckle at his own joke. Kendra feels her cheeks burn with anger and humiliation. She fights to maintain her composure, her hands clenched tightly under the table. Years of experience have taught her that an emotional outburst would only reinforce the stereotypes she's fighting against. Instead, she forces a tight-lipped smile, her eyes never leaving Tom's face. As the meeting concludes, Kendra returns to her desk. The weight of the incident settles heavily on her shoulders. She looks around the office, noting the silent glances and whispered conversations. It's clear that what happened in the meeting room has sent ripples through the entire floor. Sitting at her desk, Kendra begins to reflect on the need for change. The status quo is no longer acceptable. She realizes that if she doesn't take a stand, nothing will ever improve. As she contemplates her next move, she notices a few colleagues watching her, their expressions a mix of concern and curiosity. Kendra knows that this moment could be a turning point. The question is, does she have the strength to challenge the system that has held her back for so long? As she turns to her computer, a plan begins to form in her mind. It's time for a revolution, and Kendra is ready to lead the charge. Kendra steps out of the office building, the weight of the morning's events heavy on her shoulders. She makes her way to a nearby cafe, a small sanctuary away from the toxic atmosphere of her workplace. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee fills the air as she pushes open the door. Inside, she spots her friend Marcus waving from a corner table. His warm smile is a welcome sight after the morning's ordeal. Kendra orders her usual latte and joins him, sinking into the chair with a sigh. "Rough day?" Marcus asks, concern evident in his voice. Kendra nods, recounting the incident with Tom. As she speaks, Marcus's expression shifts from concern to anger, then to determination. "You can't let this continue, Kendra," he says firmly. "You have rights. It's time you stood up for them." His words strike a chord. Kendra realizes that she's been enduring this treatment for far too long. Marcus's encouragement ignites a spark within her, and she begins to see the possibility of change. As they talk, Kendra pulls out a notebook and starts jotting down ideas. Her mind races with possibilities for a project that could address the lack of diversity and inclusion in her workplace. Marcus offers suggestions, his enthusiasm matching Kendra's growing excitement. Their conversation stretches on, fueled by caffeine and a shared sense of purpose. By the time they part ways, Kendra's notebook is filled with rough sketches and bullet points. The outline of a plan is taking shape. Back at her apartment, Kendra spreads her notes across her desk. She opens her laptop and begins researching diversity initiatives in other companies. Hours fly by as she delves deeper into the topic, absorbing information on best practices and successful case studies. The clock on her wall shows it's well past midnight, but Kendra barely notices. She's surrounded by books on workplace diversity, printouts of relevant articles, and pages of her own notes. Her eyes are tired, but there's a fire in them that wasn't there before. As she works, Kendra's mind keeps returning to the faces of her colleagues, not just those who have faced discrimination, but also those who stand by silently. She realizes that her project needs to reach everyone, to create a workplace where diversity is not just tolerated, but celebrated. With renewed determination, Kendra turns back to her work. She knows the road ahead will be challenging, but for the first time in a long while, she feels hopeful. This project isn't just about changing her own situation. It's about transforming the entire culture of her workplace. And Kendra is ready for the challenge. The conference room buzzes with anticipation as Kendra stands at the front, her laptop connected to the projector. Her colleagues file in, their expressions a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. Tom enters last, his face set in a mask of skepticism. Kendra takes a deep breath and begins her presentation. Today, I'm proposing a project that will not only improve our work environment, but also boost our company's performance, she states, her voice clear and confident. As she delves into the details of her diversity and inclusion initiative, the room grows quiet. Slides filled with statistics and case studies flash across the screen, painting a compelling picture of the benefits of a diverse workplace. Kendra notices Tom shift uncomfortably in his seat. His initial skepticism begins to waver as she presents hard data on increased productivity and innovation in companies with strong diversity policies. Midway through the presentation, Kendra pauses. "I'd like to share a story," she says, her voice softening. "It's about our colleague Anna." The room stills as Kendra recounts Anna's experiences of discrimination within the company. She describes how Anna's ideas were often overlooked, how she was passed over for promotions despite her qualifications. Anna's story isn't unique, Kendra continues, her gaze sweeping across the room. But it illustrates the talent we're wasting, the potential we're ignoring when we fail to value diversity. As she speaks, Kendra sees a change in her colleagues' faces. Some nod in recognition, others look down, perhaps reflecting on their own behavior. Even Tom's expression has shifted from skepticism to thoughtful consideration. Kendra concludes her presentation with a roadmap for implementing her initiative. She outlines plans for diversity training, mentorship programs, and changes to hiring practices. This isn't just about doing the right thing, she emphasizes. It's about making our company stronger, more innovative, and more competitive. As Kendra finishes, a moment of silence fills the room. Then, slowly, applause begins to build. Her colleagues' faces now show respect and enthusiasm. Some are already leaning towards each other, discussing the ideas she's presented. Tom remains silent, his brow furrowed in thought. It's clear that Kendra's presentation has challenged his preconceptions, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths about the workplace he's helped create. As the meeting adjourns, Kendra feels a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She's taken the first step towards change, and while she knows the road ahead will be challenging, she's ready for the fight. The seeds of her revolution have been planted, and she's determined to see them grow. As the applause dies down, Tom clears his throat and stands up. "Well, that was certainly interesting," he says, his tone dismissive. "But let's be realistic here. We're a business, not a social experiment." Kendra feels a surge of anger, but she channels it into determination. She's prepared for this moment. "Actually, Tom," she interjects, her voice steady, "I have some questions for you." The room falls silent as Kendra faces her boss. "Can you explain why our company's diversity statistics have remained stagnant for the past 5 years?" she asks, her gaze unwavering. Tom stumbles over his words, clearly caught off guard. "Well, we've always hired based on merit. And yet," Kendra continues, "studies show that diverse teams outperform homogeneous ones by 35%. How do you reconcile that with our current hiring practices?" As Tom struggles to respond, Kendra presses on. She cites specific instances where diverse perspectives led to innovative solutions in other companies. With each question, she dismantles Tom's arguments, exposing the flaws in the current system. The atmosphere in the room shifts. Colleagues who had remained silent begin to voice their support for Kendra's ideas. Sarah from marketing speaks up about the untapped market potential in diverse communities. James from HR admits to the limitations of their current recruitment strategies. Tom's face reddens as he realizes he's losing control of the narrative. He attempts to steer the conversation back to familiar territory, but Kendra's prepared responses leave him floundering. As the discussion continues, a network of support begins to form around Kendra. Colleagues who had previously kept their heads down are now actively engaging, sharing their own experiences and ideas. The meeting runs over its scheduled time, but nobody seems to notice. The energy in the room has transformed from tension to excitement. Ideas are flowing, and for the first time, many feel their voices are truly being heard. As people begin to file out, Anna approaches Kendra. Her eyes are bright with unshed tears. "Thank you," she says softly, "for saying what many of us have been afraid to." Kendra squeezes Anna's hand. "This is just the beginning," she responds. "We're in this together now." As they leave the conference room, Kendra notices Tom standing alone, his expression a mix of frustration and bewilderment. She realizes that the balance of power has shifted. The revolution she dreamed of has begun, and there's no turning back now. In the weeks following the pivotal meeting, Kendra and Anna throw themselves into planning diversity and inclusion workshops. They commandeer an unused conference room, covering the walls with colorful post-it notes and flowcharts. "We need to create a safe space for people to share their experiences," Kendra says, scribbling on a whiteboard. Anna nods in agreement, adding, "And we should invite speakers from different backgrounds to provide diverse perspectives." Their enthusiasm is infectious. Colleagues begin stopping by, curious about the flurry of activity. Many offer to help, bringing in resources and sharing personal stories. The first workshop is scheduled for a Friday afternoon. Kendra paces nervously as people file in, unsure of what to expect. To her relief, the room fills quickly. Even a few members of upper management make an appearance, though Tom is noticeably absent. Kendra starts the session with an icebreaker activity, encouraging participants to share something about their cultural background. Initially, there's hesitation, but soon the room is buzzing with conversation. As the workshop progresses, Kendra introduces exercises designed to highlight unconscious biases and promote empathy. The atmosphere grows more open and honest with each activity. Midway through, Mark from accounting raises his hand. "I'd like to share something," he says, his voice shaky. The room falls silent as Mark recounts his struggles as the only openly gay man in his department. He describes the subtle discrimination he's faced and the toll it's taken on his mental health. By the time Mark finishes speaking, there's not a dry eye in the room. Colleagues who've never spoken to him before approach to offer support and share their own stories. The energy in the office begins to shift noticeably. People who once kept to their own cliques now mingle more freely. Conversations at the water cooler range from shared cultural celebrations to discussions about systemic inequalities. Kendra and Anna's initiative gains momentum. Each workshop brings new revelations and stronger connections among colleagues. The once tense office atmosphere gradually transforms into one of mutual respect and understanding. As word spreads, other departments begin requesting their own workshops. Kendra and Anna find themselves working late into the night, but the exhaustion is offset by the visible changes they're creating. One evening, as they're packing up after a particularly powerful session, Anna turns to Kendra. "You know," she says softly, "I think we're really making a difference here." Kendra smiles, looking around at the room filled with notes and ideas from their colleagues. "We're just getting started," she replies, her eyes gleaming with determination. The revolution they've begun is gaining strength, and its effects are reaching far beyond what either of them initially imagined. Buoyed by the success of their workshops, Kendra and Anna set their sights on a more ambitious project. They've identified a gap in the company's talent pipeline and see an opportunity to make a lasting impact. "What if we create a mentorship program?" Kendra suggests one afternoon. "We could connect young talents from diverse backgrounds with industry leaders." Anna's eyes light up. "That's brilliant. It would give underrepresented groups a real chance to break into the industry." They spend weeks refining the idea, reaching out to potential mentors and partner organizations. Their proposal takes shape, a comprehensive program that would not only provide guidance to young talents, but also expose the company to fresh perspectives. On the day of the presentation, the boardroom is packed. Kendra and Anna stand confidently at the front, ready to unveil their vision. "Our mentorship program will bridge the gap between potential and opportunity," Kendra begins. She outlines the structure, a 6-month program pairing promising students and recent graduates with experienced professionals in the company. Anna takes over, presenting data on similar programs in other industries. Companies that implement these initiatives see a 35% increase in diversity at the management level within 5 years, she states. As they speak, they notice Tom shifting uncomfortably in his seat. His eyes dart around the room, taking in the approving nods and engaged expressions of his colleagues. When they open the floor for questions, the response is overwhelmingly positive. Department heads volunteer to be mentors, and HR representatives discuss how to integrate the program into their recruitment strategy. Tom remains silent throughout, his expression unreadable. But as the meeting concludes, he approaches Kendra and Anna. "I have to admit," he says, his voice low, "I underestimated the impact of your work. It's not an apology, but it's a start." Kendra and Anna exchange glances, recognizing the significance of this moment. In the following days, the office buzzes with excitement about the mentorship program. Kendra overhears conversations about cultural competence and the value of diverse perspectives. The change in atmosphere is palpable. During a team meeting, Tom surprises everyone by publicly acknowledging the importance of Kendra and Anna's initiative. "This program aligns with our company's vision for the future," he says, though his tone suggests he's still coming to terms with the shift. As Kendra leaves the meeting, she feels a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead is still long, but for the first time, she sees real change on the horizon. The revolution she started is no longer just her vision. It's becoming a shared goal, transforming the very fabric of the company culture. The success of Kendra and Anna's initiatives begins to attract attention beyond the confines of their office. Word spreads through industry networks, and soon, the company finds itself under scrutiny from various quarters. One morning, Tom receives a call from the corporate headquarters. The CEO wants an update on the company's diversity metrics and initiatives. Tom, caught off guard, fumbles through the conversation, realizing he's ill-prepared to discuss the topic in depth. Panicked, he calls an emergency meeting with his leadership team. "We need to show concrete results," he says, his usual bravado replaced by a hint of desperation. "What progress can we report?" The room falls silent. It's clear that while Kendra and Anna's work has changed the office atmosphere, the company's overall diversity numbers haven't shifted significantly yet. Tom's face reddens as he realizes the precariousness of his position. Meanwhile, Kendra's reputation as a changemaker grows. She receives an invitation to speak at a prestigious conference on workplace inclusion. The email sits open on her screen as she contemplates the opportunity. Anna bursts into her cubicle, eyes shining with excitement. "You have to do it, Kendra. This is your chance to inspire change on a larger scale." Kendra nods, a mix of nervousness and determination settling in her stomach. She begins to prepare her speech, drawing on her experiences and the stories shared in their workshops. As the conference date approaches, tension in the office ratchets up. Tom makes clumsy attempts to align himself with the diversity initiative, but his past actions make his efforts seem insincere. Colleagues exchange knowing glances when he awkwardly tries to use inclusive language in meetings. The day before the conference, Tom corners Kendra in the break room. "Make sure you represent the company well," he says, his tone a mixture of command and plea. Kendra meets his gaze steadily, recognizing the fear behind his bravado. "I'll speak the truth about our journey," she replies calmly, "both the challenges and the progress." As she walks away, Kendra reflects on how far they've come. The office that once felt hostile now buzzes with the energy of change. Colleagues who once stayed silent now speak up against microaggressions. The mentorship program is set to launch in a month. Yet, she knows there's still a long way to go. As she finalizes her speech, Kendra realizes that this conference is more than just a personal opportunity. It's a chance to push for systemic change, to challenge other companies to do better. With this thought, she adds a final, bold call to action to her presentation. The revolution she started in her office is about to find a much larger stage. The conference hall buzzes with anticipation as Kendra takes the stage. Hundreds of faces look up at her, representing companies from across the industry. She takes a deep breath, centers herself, and begins her speech. 2 years ago, I was just another employee trying to navigate a hostile work environment. Kendra starts, her voice strong and clear. Today, I stand before you as a catalyst for change. As Kendra recounts her journey, the audience hangs on her every word. She doesn't shy away from the difficult parts, the discrimination, the microaggressions, the resistance she faced. But she also highlights the victories, big and small, that have transformed her workplace. Change is possible, she declares, but it requires courage, persistence, and most importantly, action from every level of an organization. As she concludes her speech, the room erupts in applause. Kendra feels a surge of emotion, realizing the impact of her words. During the Q&A session, hands shoot up across the room, each person eager to learn more about implementing similar initiatives in their own companies. Back at the office, Anna has organized a viewing party for Kendra's speech. Colleagues crowd around screens, watching with pride as their coworker becomes the face of a movement. Even Tom is there, his expression a mix of admiration and discomfort. As Kendra's speech ends, Anna takes the floor. "Kendra's shown us what's possible," she says, her voice filled with emotion. "But this isn't just her fight. It's all of ours." Anna shares her own story of discrimination and the difference the recent changes have made in her work life. Her words resonate deeply with the room, and soon others step forward to share their experiences and commit to furthering the cause. The energy in the office is electric. People who have never spoken up before find their voices. Ideas for new initiatives flow freely, and impromptu task forces form to tackle various aspects of diversity and inclusion. As the day progresses, news of Kendra's speech spreads beyond the conference. Social media buzzes with clips and quotes. Industry publications reach out for interviews. What started as one woman's stand against discrimination has grown into a movement that's capturing national attention. By the time Kendra returns to the office the next day, she's greeted as a hero. But amidst the congratulations and accolades, she remains focused on the work ahead. The revolution has gained momentum, but she knows that real, lasting change will require ongoing effort and vigilance. As she settles back into her desk, Kendra smiles to herself. The path forward is clearer now, and she's no longer walking it alone. In the weeks following the conference, the office dynamics shift dramatically. Tom, once the unchallenged authority, finds himself increasingly isolated. His outdated views and reluctance to fully embrace the changes leave him out of step with the evolving culture. During team meetings, Tom's suggestions are met with skepticism, while ideas aligned with Kendra and Anna's initiatives receive enthusiastic support. He watches, bewildered, as his influence wanes. One morning, Tom arrives to find an email from upper management in his inbox. The subject line reads, "Urgent, company culture evaluation." His hands shake slightly as he opens it. The email details concerns about the discrepancy between the company's public image, bolstered by Kendra's speech, and internal reports of ongoing issues. It demands a comprehensive review of the office culture and Tom's leadership. Panic sets in as Tom realizes the precariousness of his position. He scrambles to align himself with the diversity initiatives, but his efforts come across as insincere and too little, too late. Meanwhile, Kendra and Anna continue their work, now with increased support from all levels of the company. They launch a mentorship program, pairing senior executives with employees from underrepresented groups. The program is an immediate success, fostering understanding and breaking down long-standing barriers. During a company-wide meeting, Tom attempts to take credit for the positive changes, but as he speaks, the room's atmosphere grows tense. Employees exchange knowing glances, their discomfort palpable. Suddenly, Sarah from marketing stands up. "I'm sorry, Tom," she says, her voice firm, "but this credit belongs to Kendra, Anna, and everyone who's been brave enough to push for change. Your resistance has been part of the problem." A murmur of agreement ripples through the room. Tom stands at the front, his face reddening, as more employees voice their support for Kendra and Anna's efforts. The meeting ends with Tom looking deflated, while Kendra observes with a mix of satisfaction and empathy. She knows the fight isn't over, but this moment marks a significant shift in the power dynamics. As people file out, Kendra overhears snippets of conversation. Colleagues discuss new ideas for inclusion, share personal stories, and express relief at finally feeling heard. The atmosphere of support is palpable, a stark contrast to the tension that once permeated the office. Kendra catches Anna's eye across the room, and they share a smile. Their revolution is no longer just a dream. It's becoming a reality, reshaping the very foundation of their workplace. The tension in the conference room is palpable as the board of directors convenes for a special meeting. Kendra sits at one end of the table, a folder of documents in front of her. Tom occupies the other end, his usual confidence noticeably absent. The CEO opens the meeting, addressing the elephant in the room. "We're here to discuss the recent developments in our company culture and leadership." Tom, sensing an opportunity, quickly interjects. "I've been at the forefront of these changes," he claims, his voice strained. "Kendra's work has been adequate, but let's not overstate its impact." Kendra feels a surge of anger, but channels it into determination. "I believe the evidence speaks for itself," she says calmly, opening her folder. Over the next hour, Kendra presents a comprehensive report. She outlines the successes of the diversity initiatives, backed by data showing improved employee satisfaction, increased productivity, and positive media coverage. She also presents testimonials from employees and clients, all praising the new inclusive culture. As Kendra speaks, Tom's face grows increasingly pale. He attempts to interrupt several times, but the board members silence him with stern looks. When Kendra finishes, the room is quiet for a moment. Then, one of the board members turns to Tom. "How do you explain your initial resistance to these changes?" she asks pointedly. Tom stumbles through a response, his words ringing hollow in the face of Kendra's evidence. The board's disappointment is evident. The CEO then addresses Kendra. "Your work has not gone unnoticed. We believe you're the kind of leader this company needs moving forward." What happens next unfolds rapidly. The board votes to terminate Tom's employment, citing his failure to adapt to the company's new direction and his history of fostering a discriminatory environment. As Tom is escorted from the building, shell-shocked and silent, Kendra is offered his position. The revolution she started has culminated in this moment of personal triumph and organizational transformation. Kendra accepts the role with grace and determination. As she leaves the conference room, she's greeted by a sea of smiling faces. Anna rushes forward to embrace her, tears of joy in her eyes. The office erupts in celebration. The journey has been long and challenging, but the victory is sweet. Kendra knows that there's still work to be done, but as she looks around at her colleagues, diverse, united, and empowered, she feels a profound sense of hope for the future. The revolution is complete, but for Kendra and her colleagues, it's just the beginning of a new era of inclusivity and progress.